Longhorn fans, Sooner Nation, welcome to episode 88 of the Bevo Podcast. The only podcast exclusively dedicated to covering the greatest rivalry in college football, the University of Texas and the University of Oklahoma. I'm here with my man, Kevin Miller. I am John Whitson. Kevin, a fantastic day of college football yesterday. For the Oklahoma Sooners, Dylan Gabriel has 8 total touchdowns. The first time in school history that a quarterback has thrown for 5 and run for 3 in a blowout of West Virginia. All was right in the world in Norman. The University of Texas sneaks out of Fort Worth with a narrow victory that was not indicative of the whole game, but was definitely indicative of the fourth quarter. But Quinn Ewers to A.D. Mitchell on a crucial third down and long play seals the deal. However, Jonathan Brooks, the workhorse, as of Wednesday, we were discussing where he ranks in the pantheon of Texas running backs, has a torn ACL as you guys head to Iowa State this upcoming week. But Kevin, we've got to talk about the largest buyout in college football history. I don't know for coaches. I almost wonder if it's one of the largest buyouts. It could be. It's clearly one of but it might be the largest buyout in sports history. $76 million to stop coaching.
Correct, and to leave College Station.
To get the hell out of town, $76 million. That's how much they hated him. Comes at a weird time because they blew out Mississippi State yesterday. But from what I understand, the decision was made last week. The result of this game didn't matter. Kevin, are you surprised on the timing of the firing, that it took place, or that A&M was willing to pay the buyout?
You know, I'm not surprised that they were willing to pay the buyout. We've talked about that before. For them, it's just money, and they've got it there, right? They're so desperate to have a championship program. They'll do anything. I mean, it showed their desperation when they paid him $76 million or however much they gave him initially when they hired him, right? And then 2 years in, they gave him a raise to $90 million. They added $90 million on top of that. So we know what they're about when it comes to trying to win and willing to do whatever it takes to win a championship. It wasn't happening. I'm a little surprised by the timing, but the fact that they did it, no surprise to me at all.
Well, I guess in this day and age, right, you want to be, if you're going to make the decision, you go ahead and make it now so that you can start courting coaches and, trying to figure out who the coach is going to be. You've talked about Deion Sanders. I'm gonna pump the brakes on that idea, especially after the latest loss.
Understandable.
To Arizona, they give up 10 points in the fourth. Not that they're going to make a decision based on one, but the luster of what obviously was happening in Boulder has gone for the moment. So taking Deion Sanders off the table, I mean, who realistically is on the short list for A&M to go after?
Well, I've heard a few names that they may be interested. I've heard Dan Lanning. They would try to see if they can get him.
Okay, so that was the first name that came to mind, only because he's a young, energetic, clearly successful, knows the SEC, all of those things, right? He's not leaving Oregon for the cesspool that is A&M. I mean, the truck that they would have to unload to get him, and even then, I think the guy might actually have some self-respect. I can't imagine he wants to leave Oregon for A&M. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I agree with that, but you never know, right? Maybe he's going to think, hey, they've got some pretty good players here on this roster. Then
he's got some pretty good players on his roster.
He does, but A&M has better players. They do. And if you take A&M's roster, we're just talking about talent here, not results or anything.
Sure, no.
If you compare it to Oregon, I would take A&M's roster over Oregon's roster, top to bottom. But the problem is, though, does he want to compete with everything he has to compete with? Does he want to compete with Texas and Oklahoma and LSU we're talking just for recruits in the state of Texas? On the field, does he want to compete against Texas and Oklahoma and LSU and Alabama and Georgia and Tennessee and Florida? You know what I mean? It seems like he's in a better situation to win and to be successful at Oregon. But these coaches and their egos, man. So I wouldn't put it past him or anybody else to at least consider it.
I will say this too, though. Like if Oregon was staying in the Pac-12 as we know it, then there might be an allure to go from the Pac-12 to the SEC. Like that's the center. But now they're in the Big Ten. They're going to get plenty of run in the Big Ten. I don't know. Whatever. Who's next on the list? I can't.
Okay.
I'll believe that when I see it. I think it would be a fantastic hire.
Yeah. Here's the thing. If you're Texas A&M, right, you've shown you're willing to do whatever it takes to try to get whoever you want to be the coach. So you make them say no. You start at the top and make them tell you no.
Fair enough.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be surprised too. Okay. Now, Mike Elko, the Duke head coach, right? Now I know it's like, oh, Duke, but if you think about it, 9-4 at Duke last year. They're 6-4 this year. All their losses have come against ranked teams.
They almost beat North Carolina yesterday.
Correct, right? Took 2 overtimes for them to lose to North Carolina. He got hired from being their defensive coordinator, A&M. Right? So he's been there. He knows how to recruit there. So he's a name that makes sense to. Again, it's not the huge splash hire, but you got to get the right guy in.
Well, what's crazy about a school like A&M is, are they willing to get the Duke coach?
Yeah.
I mean, they unloaded on a Florida State coach in Jimbo that had won the national title.
Yeah.
Like that was their, and at the time, not a lot of people questioned the hire.
No, it made perfect sense. It seemed like a great hire.
But I just okay. Give me a couple more names, and then we'll move on.
Okay, these are all names that aren't going to be super huge names, right? Chris Kleiman at Kansas State.
He's really good, but yeah.
He is good. But does he want to be in that kind of pressure situation? It's a lot different than Manhattan, Kansas. That's for sure, right? I've also heard Jonathan Smith, the head coach at Oregon State, has done a great job for them.
I thought
they were 10-3 last year.
I thought he might be on the list.
And they've got one loss this year, right? And then I've also heard Kalen DeBoer from Washington.
They were
11-2 last year. The head coach.
Oh yeah. No, I would be considering him again.
11-2 last year, and then they're 10-0 so far this season.
If you're in, I don't know. It's going to be fascinating to see. We've joked about Jimbo on this podcast now for 2 years. The problem is, there's a couple ways to look at it. Number one, it was the devil we knew, and we never really wanted him to leave because he was so inept. Number two, man, what happens if they get Dan Lanning and we have to go up against them for the next 10 years? Yeah. However, and I'm going to close this topic off with this, Kevin, and I think you'll agree with me. At the end of the day, they're still Texas A&M, and they're going to find a way to screw it up.
That is true. Real quick, a couple other guys I've heard. If you're looking smaller, group of 5 guys. Jeff Traylor, you remember Jeff Traylor? Texas high school football coach, current head coach at UTSA, right? I mean, he knows Texas clearly. He has a respect of every.
I would be shocked if A&M dropped to the Roadrunners for their head coach. I mean, again, I think he's a good coach. He's done some good stuff at UTSA, but that would be a shocker.
Yeah, and then I've heard this weird thing on The Athletic earlier. It's a wild card. Did you hear about this?
No.
Dan Campbell.
Really?
The current head coach of the Detroit Lions, as we remember, if you're old enough to remember, former A&M tight end in the late 90s.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So,
well, you know what? Okay, I had not thought about Dan Campbell. Okay, on that list, that one to me actually makes the most sense. He's kind of a college guy, in terms of passion.
Yeah, exactly. Passion, emotion, and stuff. Yeah, for sure.
The problem is they're winning right now. I mean, they're one of the they just kicked it. We're recording late today because I was in Dallas for soccer, but they just kicked a game-winning field goal. I mean, He's got the Detroit Lions winning football games. But still, dude, that's something that they can unload him.
And home is home, right? Home is home.
Wow.
We've
All
seen
right, let's keep it up.
coaches
Let's keep an eye
leave
on.
good situations to go to their alma mater. We've seen it before.
I'm glad you stood up for your airtime there to throw in Dan Campbell, because that's the best one I've heard. I like that pick. I don't know if I like it because I want to go against it, because I don't know if I do. I like it from the standpoint that it makes sense. That's really, really interesting. All right. Around the country. Again, here was the crazy thing about last night or yesterday for football. With the exception of the Georgia Ole Miss game and the Texas game, if you're a Texas fan, if you're an Oklahoma fan, you never had to change the channel like yesterday. Fox had 4 games in a row: Michigan, Penn State, Utah, Washington, Oklahoma, West Virginia, and USC, Oregon. I mean, that is an incredible slate of games for Fox. And I thought they did great on that. Y'all were up on ABC, the big channel, which was pretty good. And then you had to turn over to the ESPN for the Georgia Ole Miss. But it was a lot of really, really good games. Ohio State, starting off, though, beats the ever-loving snot out of Michigan State 38-3.
No surprise there. No surprise there at all.
I wonder if Michigan State's reached out to Dan Lanning in Detroit as well. Georgia over Ole Miss 52-17. Kevin, do you lay the 52-17 blowout at the feet of the College Football Playoff Committee for not putting Georgia number 1?
Maybe. I think when you've had as much success as they've had over the past few years, you need things to get you motivated. And that's probably a thing that'll get them fired up. And we saw that yesterday. This is pretty. I mean, I didn't think it would be 52-17, but I thought they'd win the game. And they'd win the game comfortably, just because Ole Miss is good enough to get your attention.
Yeah.
Right? They're a top 10 team. They've been looking good. And, man, the game was not close. And I don't even think Mississippi played that bad. That's just how good Georgia was. I never watched Ole Miss and ooh, that like they're really bad. No, it's just Georgia's really good.
Georgia beat Ole Miss so bad that Spencer Sanders got minutes. That's how bad they got beat. Spencer Sanders had 4 attempts. So it was a beatdown. Bowers is back in the lineup. That changes their offense obviously considerably. They're really good when he's in. Their quarterback looked good. Carson Beck went for 306 and 2 touchdowns. Their running back went for nine carries, 127 yards and 2 touchdowns. I would say that's a very efficient running day. The problem with Georgia is they just, outside of Bowers, it's hard sometimes to even name offensive players for them because they don't stand out. And yet you got a running back that went 9 for 127 against a top 10 team. I mean, they've got dudes, and
they've got them everywhere too. Just both lines of scrimmages, and then at the skill positions too.
It's unbelievable. In this day and age, we talk constantly about how hard it is to go undefeated. Georgia just keeps delivering, dude. And now, jumping to a game that's going to that will be their opponent in the SEC championship game because they clinched this weekend. Alabama beat Kentucky 49-21. Jalen Milroe the beast inside of him has awoken. 3 passing touchdowns, 3 rushing touchdowns. Best player on the field by a mile. He was dynamic. He was almost unstoppable. This Alabama team is a different team than the one you faced the second week of the year.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I told you from the jump, I believe in Jalen Milroe. I did last year.
You did.
Again, my thing is, right, and I don't want to make everything about Texas and Sark, but, he does a really good job of evaluating quarterbacks, right? He recruited, the position he was in, he could basically get whoever he wanted. And he chose to get Jalen Milroe, right, as his quarterback. Obviously, this is before he left to Texas, but he recruited and signed Jalen Milroe. To me, that's enough, right?
Yeah.
And they finally unlocked his athleticism, let him run, and let him take the deep shots. That's what he's good at, right? They're not trying to force anything. I thought in that Texas game, they had him doing some things that he's just not great at. And to me, you got to find a player's strength and just exploit them, and that's exactly what they did. So it's cool to see they're a dangerous team.
well, they're Alabama. And I was probably guilty. I hope that nobody goes back and looks at the receipts from week 3 and 4, where we were like, oh, well, Milroe, or Alabama is this. Listen, dude, they're Alabama. All doubts have been removed. Jalen Milroe is a stud. The collision that's going to occur in Atlanta on championship Saturday, that's going to be big. That's going to be big boy football. So here's my question to you. And I know we're going through the score, but let's look ahead a little bit. Texas wins out. Bama wins out. Bama beats number 1 Georgia. Okay. Bama beats number 1 Georgia. Do they get in over Texas into the playoff?
I think they do. I've been saying it for weeks now. We talked about, look, there's nothing I want more than Texas to be in the playoff if they finish 12-1 with the Big 12 championship. But I think they're going to give so much credit to Alabama for beating number 1 Georgia. I just think they will. Is it right? No. But I just think they will. They're going to give Alabama the benefit of the doubt because they beat Georgia as opposed to Texas potentially beating the likes of Oklahoma State.
Okay. If it was any other Big 12 school, maybe even including Oklahoma, although maybe not. If it was any other big school not named Texas or Oklahoma, I would agree with you. Okay. If TCU had figured out a way to win, whatever, doesn't matter. I would agree with you. However, this is Texas. Okay. This is ESPN has a station called the Longhorn Network. This is a global football brand. Okay. And in addition, the state of Texas is a powerful state in the union. They would freaking succeed if they did not get in over a team that they beat Alabama. Now, I'm not joking about this. If I'm in the playoff committee, what I am saying to my advice to everybody in the playoff committee is I agree Alabama should be in. Championship, the champion of the best conference, you beat the best team, you should be in. However, we can't leave Texas out. Texas beat Alabama. The games have to matter. I think firmly that it's going to screw somebody in the Pac-12 or it's going to screw Florida State. Like, to me, that's who will get screwed out of the deal, not the University of Texas.
Potentially a one-loss Texas and or a one-loss Alabama will get in over an undefeated Florida State.
Yeah. So take Florida State for example. So like if you're undefeated Texas, or one-loss Texas. Okay, well here's the argument in a one-loss Texas game. You beat Alabama on the road in Tuscaloosa, and then you beat everybody else on your schedule, and your only loss is to at the time, I don't know, what were they, 11th ranked Oklahoma team on a neutral field on the last play of the game. Like, that is not a bad loss. It is never a bad loss. Oklahoma is still winning. I think you want Oklahoma to keep winning. I think what you really want is for Oklahoma to somehow make it into the Big 12 championship. I think you really want a rematch, because then it's you beat everybody on their schedule. So I think, yes, if Texas wins out, especially if they beat Oklahoma in a Big 12 championship game, they would leave Florida State out, and Florida State would be pissed, but nobody cares about Florida State. Like, this is Texas. People are going to care about Texas. I'm telling you, dude.
Hey, I hope you're right.
You can't leave them out.
Maybe this is 13 years of, bad things happening. I'm just trying to prepare myself.
I can't imagine a scenario, because now, I understand the argument that Alabama is a different team. Okay, great. So is Oklahoma. Oklahoma doesn't have Andrell Anthony anymore. So is Texas. Texas is going to be a different team without Jonathan Brooks with the torn ACL.
Absolutely.
Like, things will be different. But if you keep winning, you win, and this is one encapsulated season. All right, I don't even know where we left off. Washington, let's aforementioned Florida State outlast Miami 27-20 in what was a pretty good game.
It was a good game.
Miami had a chance. They fell short. Washington over Utah, 35-28. This was a win for me with the Utah cover, a loss for you.
What was the spread? I forget what the spread was on that.
8.5. 8.5.
Okay.
The score was only 7.
They could have. If not, did you see that pick six?
Yeah.
That the dude dropped before the end zone? Like, come on, man. Poor guy. Just fifth-year senior. First career interception. You drop it a yard outside the end zone. Come on, man.
Classic. Penix, 24 for 42, 332 yards, 2 touchdowns. We know Utah is a good defensive team. Does Washington have their offensive groove back after a get-right game at USC and now a really good showing against what we know is a good Utah defense?
Yeah, I think so, man. I think they're back in action here. Look, their defense, I still have questions about.
Yeah, especially giving up
Right.
28 to Utah. Yeah.
Correct. Right. And Utah runs the ball well, but they were making some plays in a passing game too that Washington's not going to like. That's my only concern with them going forward. They still have Oregon State left. And of course, if they beat them, they'll be back in the Pac-12 championship game against potentially Oregon. So
Oregon
a tough matchup for them.
Oregon beats USC 36-27. I didn't follow the post game, but I don't think there was any sobbing and crying to speak of. However, Bo Nix did outplay Caleb Williams, 23 of 31, 412 passing yards, and 4 touchdowns against USC Trojans. Kevin, Bo Nix is putting together a heck of a season. He is making every case. We're going to talk about the Heisman's here in a minute, but just he is playing great. Here's the problem with Caleb Williams. What's interesting about this is everybody, I don't want this to sound like just being a butt about Lincoln Riley, but everybody wants to talk about Lincoln Riley's offense and how he's so good at calling offense and all this kind of stuff. The points that USC does score come off of like Herculean efforts by Caleb Williams. Like he is, it's not because Caleb Williams is throwing to wide open receivers. It's because he's running around, dodging stuff, flipping balls sideways, doing little shovel passes off. I mean, Caleb Williams is doing everything he can to win these games, and it's just not enough. And I got to tell you, not only am I concerned about USC's defense going forward, regardless of who they hire, but I'm kind of concerned about their offense because you've got freaking Caleb Williams, and he's having to work that hard to make things happen. It's an interesting look. Am I reading too much into that?
No, I don't think you are at all, right? There's some concerns with the offensive line. And look, you're playing against Oregon, right? One of the best teams in the country, one of the best defenses and offenses in the country. So you can't make too much out of it. But overall, I'm really concerned or curious to see how they transfer over the roster next year, right? I think they're going to have to be heavy in the portal. I haven't checked on their recruiting in the last few weeks to see where they're at there. But yeah, this roster needs a lot of work, especially in the trenches. And like we said last week, they have got to nail this defensive coordinator hire. I mean, that is one of the biggest. I mean, Texas A&M is taking the spotlight because they're looking for a head coach, right? But when it comes to a coordinator spot, he's got to get the right guy. And maybe he's waiting to see on if there are any defensive-minded head coaches that get fired or what the deal is. But he's got to get the right guy in there because the whole team needs a little bit of a shot in the arm when it comes to just culture and development.
Sorry, I was on mute. I agree. No, I do. I agree. And it's funny because you said it last week when we heard about Grinch getting fired. That this is your one chance. It's kind of like Bobby Petrino was for Jimbo. Like this is your chance to fix the offense.
Yeah.
And make the right hire. Clearly, he made the wrong hire. But it's going to be interesting, and it's just something to keep an eye on. But they're on pace. They're 7-4. Still have to play UCLA. They're on pace to go 7-5, which is music to my ears.
Yeah, I think it was funny, real quick, before we move on.
Sure.
I think last year, the fact that they got off to such a good start in his first year, right? Going 10-2, 11-2 before the bowl game, right? Playing for the conference title. Our expectations were sky high with them bringing Caleb back. But, man, yeah, the rest of the roster just didn't really add up. They got to figure it out.
Staying in the Pac-12, the spoiler to the Washington and Oregon train plays each of those teams in the next 2 weeks. Oregon State beats the living snot out of Stanford, 62-17. Kevin, they've got Washington next week, and then they've got Oregon. Can Oregon State be the upset, be the be the fly in the ointment to the dream matchup of the Pac-12 championship game.
Oh yeah, they absolutely can. They've had a great season. DJ Uiagalelei is having a good season. I like their head coach a lot. They just give everybody fits, right? We saw last year, we thought something was wrong with USC when they played Oregon State. It just turned out that Oregon State was actually really good.
Yeah.
They're just really good. So, yeah, I would love to see, we're kind of rooting for some kind of chaos to happen. So I'd like to at least see a close game between them and Washington and then them and Oregon.
We just talked about it with Texas. You're absolutely rooting for some chaos. You want to give yourself as much cover as you can. If you could have Washington have a loss and Oregon have a loss, then you're talking about a one-loss resume. That's a way different deal than an undefeated conference champion. It's just different. Missouri, I called this game in terms of I just didn't like the spread. Missouri beat Tennessee 36-7. It was probably one of the worst offensive outputs by one of Josh Heupel's teams. Oklahoma State, as a ranked team, goes down 45-3 to UCF. And here's the thing, Kevin, they don't care. They do not care.
No.
They still beat us last week, and they do not care.
They don't.
They could lose the rest of their games, and it would not. They'll still have a parade at the end of the season.
Correct. What a horrible performance, though, man.
Well, a 45-3 loss brings into doubt the other two games. We had talked about it. They have Houston and BYU, or maybe Cincinnati and BYU. It doesn't matter. They have
it's Houston and BYU.
Houston and BYU. They could lose to Houston playing like that.
And like that, oh my god, yeah, they can. Yeah, correct.
So
it was pitiful, man, and they were never into it. We talked about that they could potentially be in for a letdown. My thought was it would be a close game going into the fourth quarter that they could pull away at the end and win. Yeah. That was or losing in a close game, never showing up. Right, we saw some of those guys that played well against when they played OU, right? Central Florida, the running back was good. He went nuts yesterday. A couple of their corners who made some plays against the Sooners made some plays against them too. So yeah, it was a monsoon, horrible weather in Orlando at least for half the game. It was a monsoon out there.
I think in a roundabout way, though, I think Texas fan wants OU to be back in it. I think they want. I think you want Oklahoma State to lose again because I think you want to play Oklahoma in a Big 12 championship game and beat them.
That would be fun. I just want them to win the conference. However it goes, it's how it goes.
In other Big 12 news, Texas Tech beats Kansas 16-13 in an upset.
That game was interesting though. I don't know if you were able to see any of it. Jason Bean got injured in the second quarter.
Oh, really? No, I did not.
In what appears to be it was a bad-looking knee injury live.
Ugh,
so no surprise. It does, because he's been having a really good season. So they had this kid come in who is, their third-string quarterback, a kid named Ballard. Apparently he's a son of the Indianapolis Colts GM. And he played pretty well for them, right? They were down the whole game. I think they're already down 10 or 14-0 when he came in. They come back to tie it up with less than a minute left, and they let Texas Tech hit a couple deep shots to go down the field, get them in field goal range, and they stole the game with no time left on the clock.
Listen, dude, Tech. I hope for Texas's sake, Tech is not peaking at the right time. It sounds like they caught a wounded Kansas team when it counts. LSU beats Florida. Jalen Daniels is the best player in the country that won't win the Heisman. 327 yards, 3 touchdowns passing, 12 carries. You ready for this? The stats this weekend were just unbelievable. 12 carries for 234 yards and 2 touchdowns. Are you kidding me, Kevin?
This is stuff you never saw from Cam Newton, Vince Young. We've never seen anything like this.
Dude, Dylan Gabriel had 8 touchdowns. Okay, it's never been done by an Oklahoma quarterback. 8 touchdowns. Milroe has 3 passing touchdowns and 3 rushing touchdowns. And then only to be upstage, and Bo Nix throws for 412 yards and 4 touchdowns. And then Jalen Daniels shows up, 12 carries for 234 yards. If that was his only stat line, it would be amazing. But he threw for 327 at 3 touchdowns. I don't know who had the best day. I think it was Daniels, but my God, Kevin, this is crazy.
Yeah, guys are putting up numbers yesterday, and this guy Daniels looked like a blend of Kyler Murray and Vince Young and Cam Newton. Every other crazy dual threat quarterback we've seen all rolled into one. I've been a fan of his since he was at Arizona State 3 years ago. So it's really cool to see him playing so well. But like you said, he's not going to win the Heisman because they're not going to give the Heisman trophy to a player that's on a team with 3 losses like LSU has.
Yep, I think you're right. In our picks of the week, you went 3-2. Losses coming in. You had picked Washington to cover, and you picked Texas to cover. I went 2-3 losses. I had picked Ole Miss to keep it close. That was a bad loss. I picked West Virginia to cover. I'll gladly take the L. And Texas, I picked Texas to cover. So you're still very healthy at 33-20-2. I'm hanging in there 29-24-2. Kevin, before we go to our game specifically, let's talk about the Heisman race. It's that time of year. There's 2 regular seasons games left and some conference championships. Give me your top 3 Heisman picks.
I'm going to go with Penix at Washington.
Is he at 1 or 3?
He's at 1.
Okay.
He's at 1 for me. Okay.
Just because they're undefeated?
Yeah, and he's been playing really well all season, and they're undefeated. Correct, and they've got a signature win. All right.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to go with Bo Nix at number 2.
Okay. All right. Here's where it gets interesting, though.
Yeah.
All right, I'm ready.
I don't know, man. You picked the 3rd one. You got my 2. Who do you got?
I think it's possible that Milroe's making a late push.
Okay.
I think it's possible that Milroe's. If you think about like Kyler Murray's year, okay?
Yeah.
Kyler Murray was not anybody's Heisman favorite for a very long time. Nobody really knew what to expect from him. And then even when he did good, they put a lot of that on just Oklahoma's good at offense. And then they lose to Texas. And so then he's off the list. And then they make a run. And Tua gets hurt and he slides in and wins. Still, I think he had a tremendous season. I don't think Kyler Murray backdoored into it, but it just kind of the things worked out for him.
Yeah, I think his performance in the Big 12 championship game really put him over the top.
Things could work out for Milroe if he has a performance over Georgia, and they go 12-1 or let it be 11-1. Man, I don't know, dude. He could make a late push for it. I still think Daniels is probably the best quarterback, the best player in college football this year. I don't think he has a chance just because of the team. But Milroe, why not? Are you telling me the Alabama quarterback with a 1 loss and a win over Georgia doesn't have a chance to win the Heisman? Forget about it.
Especially if he has that kind of moment. Yeah, I completely agree.
Is there anybody else we're not thinking about in terms of just kind of other dark horse candidates? Or do you think it's a 2-person race right now?
No, I mean, to me, those would be the top 2 for me. But I mean, Marvin Harrison Jr., he's not going to win it because they rarely give it to receivers, right?
Oh, he's good.
JJ McCarthy at Michigan, just because, oh man, he's incredible. Well, JJ McCarthy, just because he's a quarterback on an undefeated, We
didn't even talk. I guess I skipped over that team. Michigan beats Penn State 24-15. The leading passer in the game was Drew Aller, 10 for 22 for 70 yards. JJ McCarthy cannot win a Heisman if he's not allowed to pass the ball in the second half of a game. I'm sorry, absolutely not. He went 7 for 8 for 60 yards in the first half. No attempts in the second half. So no, he's not on the list.
Let's talk about that game real quick, though.
I can't stand Big Ten football, dude. I can't stand it. I get it. They're
Penn
big
State.
uglies. Oh.
In our preview episode that we did late last week, we talked about this game, and we knew exactly how it was going to unfold, right? We knew Penn State was going to play really good defense, and they were going to keep them in the game. It was going to give their offense a chance to go do something, and they weren't going to do it.
Nope.
Right? I mean, it was exactly what we thought, right? Drew Aller, I know he's talented. I don't know if it's him. I don't know if it's – they don't really have good receivers either, right? Nobody dynamic from the receiver position or the tight end position. You've got some good backs. But, man, in both of their games, their big games, he's had under 50% completion percentage. He had it against Ohio State and against Michigan, man. It's frustrating. If I was a Penn State fan, man, I'd be so frustrated.
Dude, he threw for 70 yards. And look, Oklahoma fan gives Levy just unrelenting crap for the stuff that he does. I guess in some ways we need to count our blessings because I don't even know if I was a Penn State fan, what I'd be doing. It's insane. Yeah. It's insane.
And the fact that Michigan didn't even have to throw a pass. They didn't have to because they knew they didn't have to. Even though the quarterback was 7 of 8, he showed he was capable of throwing the ball in the first half. They just didn't have to.
Sharon Moore, acting head coach, which, by the way, thoughts on that penalty? You like the penalty?
Which penalty? I'm sorry.
The
suspension. I mean, I get it, right? I mean, he's a head coach. If they have this evidence, look, man, I got no problem with stealing signs, but the way they were doing it, and maybe he didn't know, but that's a lot to go through to steal signals, man. That's just a lot to go through.
Sharon Moore, acting head coach for Michigan, former offensive lineman at Oklahoma. So there you go.
Didn't know that.
How do you like that? Very emotional after the win, though. I don't know if I want to claim him. It was a bit much. All right.
And he dropped like 4 F-bombs on live TV, which was funny.
Hey, I didn't say he was classy. I just said he was from Oklahoma. All right. Hey, shout out to our title sponsor, Brown O'Haver. Brown O'Haver works for the insured, not the insurance company. So if you've had a loss to your home or your business, you need to call Brown O'Haver at 405-735-5510. If somebody you know has had a loss, you've heard me long enough here on the Boomer Bevo podcast. If you've heard me on the radio with Toby or Tyler, you know we've been around for a really long time. You know that I can throw success story after success story out of here. Kevin has worked for us now for 6 or 7 years. He knows exactly what we do and how we help clients every single day. You need to call us or tell your friend who had a loss or your family member who had a loss. Stop telling me about your stupid loss and call John and Kevin at Brown O'Haver. They will get you more money. Stop messing with it. If you're messing with it, you're banging your head against the wall. And I can tell you, we know, because oftentimes we bang our head against the wall when we're fighting for you because insurance companies suck so much. But that's okay because that's our job. We're happy to bang our heads against the wall, and we're going to do it for you every single day. Call Brown O'Haver, 405-735-5510. Texas Longhorns, hang on. But Kevin, do you lose? You might have won the battle, but do you lose the war by losing Jonathan Brooks for the season? He had 21 carries, 104 yards, 2 touchdowns. You called him the best offensive player on your team, maybe the best player on the team. How big of a loss is this heading into Iowa State next week? I know we're not necessarily doing a preview, but I mean, thoughts on Jonathan Brooks?
Oh, man. First of all, I'm really heartbroken for him, right? Because he's put the work in. He has sat and waited behind Bijan Robinson and Roschon Johnson. His 3rd year on campus, 1st year as a starter. We weren't sure what we were going to get from him this year, and he has exceeded everybody's expectations. He's been dynamic. He has been incredibly consistent too, right? He hasn't had a bad game all year. It's a huge loss. And we've got some other talented backs, right? We've got the freshman CJ Baxter. We've got Jaden Blue. But you see when Baxter's out there, it's not the same. Even though Baxter is a more physically gifted player, it's not the same, man. He can't break tackles like he can, elude rushers like he can. He can fall forward. He always falls forward when he gets tackled. So, yeah, man, it's a huge loss, and it is definitely going to affect us and our game planning going forward.
Quinn, what do you think of Quinn's performance back? He had a couple of really shaky throws. The interception, that was a weird play, by the way. The interception that was thrown, then TCU had a great return only to fumble it and give you all the ball right back, which I think you ended up going down and scoring on, or at least getting a field goal out of the deal.
Yeah.
So it was no loss, really. But what a terrible throw. Outside of that, though, 22 of 33, 317 yards, a pretty good stat line. How'd you feel about his performance? Was it just a matter of getting his timing back? What?
Yeah, no, I thought he was good given the fact that he had been out for 2 games. And, honestly, he's good enough to be out there clearly, but I don't know how healthy he is because the way some of the plays that they called, they were doing everything in their power for him not to take any hits at all, right? The first sign of pressure, he was throwing the ball away, which again I have no problem with, but you can see, I think they're still a little bit concerned about that injury. But other than that throw, right? And I still think the throw, if he'd have thrown it more to the sidelines, it could have been a catch or at least an incompletion. He just threw it to the middle of the field. I don't know if he didn't see the safety or he just misfired on the throw, but that was bad. First of all, what a great play by Jordan Whittington. I don't know if you saw this, but he missed the tackle initially, right? So he tried to tackle him, missed, got up, and then chased the guy down, hit him, caused a fumble, which we recovered. So potential game-changing play because they score there, you're down, they got all the momentum on the road. But no, overall, I thought Quinn was good given the fact that he had been out for 2 games and he made some really good throws. And thankfully, we have some really talented receivers who made some plays for us.
Speaking of those talented receivers, my observation is, and again, this is OU fans' observation on kind of the Texas attack. It feels like when Malik is your quarterback, A.D. Mitchell is a bigger part of the game. Like that's his go-to guy. But when Quinn is in, it feels like the rapport is between him and Xavier Worthy. Now, A.D. Mitchell still went 3 for 61 and a touchdown, so it's not like he wasn't part of it. But Worthy goes for 10 for 137. Worthy wasn't seeing those numbers with Malik Murphy. Is that something in the play calling, or is that something that just you think has to do with kind of a relationship between
I think it's
thrower and catcher?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both, honestly, right? I mean, Quinn has been there with Xavier for the last 2 years, right? AD just got on campus this year, so not as much time with the quarterbacks. The biggest difference is, right, it's the way that AD Mitchell can stretch the field, and Malik is better at throwing the deep ball than Quinn Ewers is.
And probably looks for it, right? And probably looks for it. Even if that's not that's not his first read, he's probably looking for it because he just knows he can just unload it. And
correct.
So yeah.
But it's having the two of them together, man. It just makes such a huge difference, right? Because X has been there. This is 3rd year, right? You know what you're going to get from him. But the last 2 years, I mean, we got to the point where teams were bracketing their coverage to take Xavier Worthy out of plays, right? They're double teaming him, and we didn't have anybody else that was good enough that at least that could stretch the field, right? Whittington's good, but he's an underneath guy. He's like a possession type guy.
Yeah.
With A.D. Mitchell out there, it gives you 2 dynamic wide receivers out there. So, man, we really needed him, and that catch he made to clinch the game was just incredible.
You know what? That's the kind of play that if Texas is able to do something special with this season, you look back on that and say that was a critical moment in whether it's a Big 12 championship, playoff run, whatever. Because, dude, 3rd and 13, right?
At least I think it was 3rd and 12.
3rd and 12. I mean, it was a ballsy play call, ballsy throw, and just a heck of a catch. The adjustment on the ball, catching it on his back, everything went right. As an Oklahoma fan, it's hard to give credit sometimes to Texas fan, but I liked the balls it took to execute that play.
Yeah, I agree, man. And we had to have it, right? Because at this point, they've unlocked our defense, right? We're not stopping them at all. So if we have to punt the ball there, they're going to go down and they're going to score a touchdown, and they're likely going to win the game and destroy our season. So it was a play that we had to have, and we got it. So, and that's not a play that Texas has made over the last decade or so when it really mattered to get yourself out of a situation like that. So yeah, I was excited to see it and very relieved because, you know, TCU battled, and I've got some issues with Sark and some of the things that happened to even get us to that part, to that point in the game.
Yeah, I know you've got some stuff with Sark that you got to talk through, and that's what we're here for, is to talk through that. But real quick, with Xavier Worthy and A.D. Mitchell, eligibility for next year, are these 2 guys going pro?
Oh, I'd be stunned if they both didn't go pro. Yeah, they're both gone, man. Yeah, we knew Worthy was gone. The plan for him was always going to be 3 years and out. Mitchell, we weren't sure, but with the season he's having, yeah, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if he's picked in the late first or early second rounds.
Yeah.
And I'm happy for him, first of all, because, look, at Georgia, obviously he won back-to-back national championships, so he can't complain about anything there. But, this offense is just more suited to his skill set than Georgia's was, right? And, he has a daughter that's in Houston, so he gets to be closer to her. So it was just kind of a great situation for him and just a huge win for us. He has been incredible, everything we could have hoped for. And when you talk about the transfer portal, when you get guys out of the portal, this is what you hope they'll be.
Yes, this is what winning in the transfer portal looks like. And
100%.
And you're going to have to win again next year to replace these two guys. I know you've got some guys coming in, but it's,
correct.
You need to get one or two receivers, I think.
And that's why this season, right, Texas needs to do everything they can to make sure that this season is a success, because when I tell you they could legitimately have 10 players get off this team, get drafted. I don't think I'm exaggerating. And, soon we'll go through them. I'm sure we'll do this by the end of the season. But yeah, 10 players can be drafted off of this team.
Does Brooks getting hurt mean he might be back? Does Brooks getting hurt mean he's out?
That's a good question, right? We talked about this last time. You were asking about his NFL. Well, I looked, and Mel Kiper has him as the number one draft eligible running back on his board, if that means anything to you.
He's got
the number one draft eligible. But the report that I saw earlier after the injury was announced that his plan was to have surgery, rehab, and come back to Texas. I'm not sure that happens. And we talked about this. When you have a chance to go to the NFL, especially at the running back position, you go as soon as you can. I don't know if this injury is going to hurt. It might hurt where he gets drafted at, right? Because the value of running backs, they're completely devalued by NFL people, coaches, GMs, all that.
Oh, absolutely.
They devalue the position.
Yeah, because the CBA, because the CBA does the running backs no favors at all. The collective bargaining agreement is a bad deal for running backs. It's just not good.
Look, so if he's going to get drafted in the 5th round, 6th round now because of his injury, then maybe he comes back and he can go in the 2nd next year. But if he gets his draft grade based on, even with his injury, and they say, hey, you're probably going to go in the 2nd or 3rd round, he's probably at least has to consider going. I wouldn't be upset with them at all for doing so.
On the defensive side of the ball, real quick, and then I'll let you kind of give me some Sark criticism. On the defensive side of the ball, your boys Jalen Ford and Anthony Hill Jr. showed back up. Ford had 9 tackles, 7 solo. Anthony Hill Jr. 8 tackles, 5 solo. That's what you're going to have to see from those guys. I think your defense plays better when they're playing better, when they're your leading tacklers, because they're your playmakers, and I think they kind of get everything going for them. So you feel free to discuss anything on the defensive side of the ball. If not, where did Sark mess up in the 3rd quarter, and why did he let this game get so almost out of control?
Yeah, we've seen this. This is becoming a common thing for this team, right? We saw this last week against K-State. We saw before that against Houston. We're just destroying these teams. You can see in the first half that TCU had no business on the field against Texas. It was the same for K-State. But man, I don't know. Part of me, I have a few theories on this. One is that Sark wants to say, okay, we've got a good offensive line, and we've got these talented running backs. So if we have the lead, we should just be able to run the ball and kill the clock that way.
Which is different. Which, real quick, is different than what he did last year, because that was not his philosophy last year.
Correct.
Because they would be up. Y'all would be up in the second half, and he would put the ball in Quinn's hands instead of Bijan's hands.
Yeah. So Quinn was not ready for that last year.
But it's interesting that he's made that change, because now Quinn should probably be more ready to handle that and put a game away. But now he's putting the hands. Now, I would probably put the game in Jonathan Brooks' hands too, if that's one of my options. But I hear what you're saying. It's just weird that when you had,
better talent, deeper talent at running back.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is, right, and if you're getting first downs and you're moving the ball, you're getting 3 first downs on each drive, even if you don't score. I can see that. But what happens is once they start plugging it up, and then the other team starts going down and scoring, and then all of a sudden it becomes a close game. Then you need to throw the ball, and you're not in a rhythm anymore.
Right.
Yeah. So now the passing game is just off. So, man, I'm telling you, it's frustrated. I'm not going to complain about being 9-1 when we haven't been 9-1 since 2009. But, man, we keep playing with fire.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
This is 3 weeks, man. Right? Houston, questionable spot, saved us there, right? At least from them tying the game. Questionable spot.
A lot of things they would have had to score a touchdown and get a 2-point conversion, but yes.
Correct. Yeah. But the way that they were playing, they had all the momentum that I could have saw them that happening. Right? K-State. I mean, we are in overtime in a game that we're up by 20 plus points.
With a play to win the game. With K-State
to win the game.
Yep.
Yes. They have 4 chances inside the 6 to win the football game.
And here's the deal, dude. If A.D. Mitchell doesn't make that catch, it's TCU at home, dude. It's like they're going to figure out a way to at least get a field goal, if not just win it. So,
yeah, man. Like I said, you keep playing with fire, you get burned, and we are playing with fire big time. We're playing with fire big time.
Okay, so let me ask.
We're not going to get away with this if we keep doing it, man. That's all I got to say.
Okay, but here, to your point, here's the reality, right? Iowa State, they're not as good as K-State. Okay, they're not as good as K-State, so they're not the best, but they're way better than Houston, way better than TCU, and you're going on the road, another night game without Jonathan Brooks. Is this the game where that playing with fire bites you in the butt, or are you a good enough team to go ahead and go into Ames and win this game and take on Texas Tech in the season finale?
Look, we are a good enough team to go to Ames, Iowa, and beat Iowa State, even without Jonathan Brooks, but we can't be messing around here. I don't understand why we get up 3 scores and then just say, okay, that's it. That's it. Yeah. Like, can we just beat the team by 40? Like, y'all kept scoring. I know the game, it wasn't a big game y'all playing against West Virginia, right? We just kept playing. It was a big game for different reasons, right?
Yeah. Well,
it wasn't like a scary game, like as far as like a big build up or something like that. Just go keep playing. Just keep running your normal offense.
Yeah, but
that's all I'm asking here.
We've only had one game like that this year, though.
True. I'm just giving you credit for that, though, right?
All right.
You play better when you stay in a rhythm.
Speaking of Oklahoma, they were absolutely in an offensive rhythm. For all the crap that we give Jeff Lebby, not a lot to complain about today, last night. The only thing I'll say, the only snide comment I want to make about Jeff Lebby is thank you for going ahead and introducing yourself to Austin Stogner. It looks like he hadn't met you all year, and now he has. So, yes, Jeff, we do have a tight end, and you figured out how to use him. The guy was all over the place on the field, and it was really good to see. But listen, the story of the game is Dylan Gabriel, 23 of 36, 423 yards, 11.8 per completion, 5 touchdowns, a quarterback rating of 96.9, 11 rushes, 50 yards, 3 touchdowns. Kevin, 8 accounted for touchdowns. It's never happened in Oklahoma, is why I can't remember it. I don't know when's the last time that's happened for any FBS quarterback. It just sounds insane. Sawchuk goes for 22 and 135 at 6.1 yards a carry. They gave him the ball, which I like to see. He looked like the running back that I thought he was going to be at the beginning of the year. Maybe it's injury. Maybe it's work ethic. I hear a bunch of different things. Whatever it is, it's starting to look good. And then, of course, I mentioned Stoops already. 10 catches, 164 yards, 3 touchdowns. I saw a tweet from Tyler McComas that showed the 3 games that Stoops has had in a row, or at least the 2 games. The best other 2-game stretch was CeeDee Lamb and Marquise Brown. Like, those were the only 2. And he's like, and they got drafted, and they're still really high performers in the league. Now, granted, I don't think
the first round.
I don't think Stoops is either one of those guys. But, dude, he is making a case to get on an NFL roster. His name will get him on a roster, but his skill and his talent is making a case maybe to stay on an NFL roster.
Yeah, he'll get into camp based on what he's done in college, right? But yeah, I mean, we talked about this, his route running against Oklahoma State, and we saw that again, right? He's a nightmare to cover in the slot. And now that you're spreading him out and not using him just on little short passes, or he's running deeper routes, more intermediate stuff. Like, that one play, you guys are down in the red zone and you get him on a corner route. Like, he's just a really hard guy to cover, especially if he's in the slot. He's going to be matched up against a safety a lot of times. And safeties, for the most part, they just aren't great at covering. No, they're just not. They're just bad. They're good at being in a decent position a lot of times, but covering one-on-one, if they were good at that, they'd be playing corner, right? Yeah. So you isolate him against a safety, and he's so good at the short routes. He can always fake like he's doing a short route and then keep going up the field. So, yeah. So, again, give credit to Levy. I know it's hard for you guys to do that, but for finding ways.
I'm going to give him credit today.
For putting him in a position. The coach, look, any coach, coordinator, your job is to put your players in a position to be successful, and he did that. He's done that with Drake Stoops the last 2 weeks, except for that fourth down play against Oklahoma State. But he's put him in a position to be successful, and he's put the entire offense in a position to be successful yesterday. And you guys played like a team that was frustrated after 2 losses. So I'm sure for Sooner fans, it was relieving to see that.
It was also good to see Danny Stutzman back on the field, 8 tackles, 3 solo. And then we saw Kip Lewis play next to him, which we talked about. And I talked about this with some of the soccer dads today. The concern was that you weren't going to see Kip Lewis because Kip Lewis was Danny Stutzman's backup, which we talked about this on when we did our preview episode. And I imagine it can be a little difficult to play a different position. That makes sense to me. However, at the end of the day, you only have 11 spots on that field. You've got to put your best athletes out there.
Get your guys out there.
You've got to figure it out. And Kip Lewis, I'm sure he's a smart enough guy to get out there and make whatever adjustments he needs to make. The kid looked really good. That is a more dynamic linebacking core. Kanik has had moments this year too. Kanik hasn't been bad.
No.
Lewis is
better.
Lewis is better. And so that was a lot of fun. Bowman had a good game. Pearson with an interception. He's had just a really solid good year. I don't know if he has eligibility left after this year, but I hope he does because I really like what he brings. When he was out against Oklahoma State, it was noticeable. So I'm hoping he's back. And then Jacoby Johnson, I got to give him a shout out. Mustang kid. Listen, he was behind the 8 ball with this incoming class, Kevin, because he stayed at Mustang to play basketball and do all the stuff that you want to do as a senior. He did not enroll early. And so, he doesn't get that whole amount of springtime in there that some of the other guys had. He's a very, very athletic kid, made a very athletic play on the interception, twinkle-toed it on the sideline. It would have been good in an NFL stadium. So, I don't know. I was really, really excited about this win. We go to BYU now. BYU is not any good.
No,
this should be a game. This should be a game where we roll. And here's the problem. Poor BYU. They're so bad, right, that we now have to go freaking play them at 10 o'clock in the morning Mountain Time, Kevin. I am spending, I don't even want to know how much on tickets and airline tickets and a hotel room. And it's going to be fun. I'm going to enjoy myself. But it's a lot of freaking money to go out there and watch a 10 a.m. game. You know what a 10 a.m. football game is, Kevin? That's a makeup JV game at high school. You know what I mean? Like, oh, well, we couldn't play it last week because of the fire drill that was run. So now we're going to have to make it up. Let's play it on Saturday at 10 a.m. How does that sound? Yeah, we'll get some of the dads to referee it. That's the kind of time slot that we freaking have for this game, and it sucks. And it sucks that I have to go all the way to Provo and wake my happy ass up at 6 a.m. to go watch a football game. I cannot stand it. Listen, I get the TV makes all the decisions. Well, sometimes TV sucks. And this is one where they suck. If the game is so bad, Kevin, if it's such a bad game, then who cares if it's at 11 a.m.? Like, what difference does it make? Roll that freaking game at 2:30 and put it on ESPN+. What are we doing?
Yeah, man, that sucks, right? I mean, you don't go to as many games as you used to go to.
No, because I'm an adult. Yeah, I'm an adult with
You got
kids.
kids who play sports and stuff. So for you to travel all the way to Provo, Utah, to go to a game that starts at 10 a.m. local time, how is that even a thing? Starting a game at 10 a.m. local time. You're gonna watch the sunrise at the stadium. Are they gonna serve breakfast sandwiches instead of burgers at the stadium?
Dude, I don't even know. It just, and it sucks for like think about like Provo as a community and an economy, right? You've got one of the biggest opponents you've ever had coming to their stadium. I'm not saying we're the biggest, but one of the biggest. I mean, Oklahoma's a brand.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
And think about now they don't have a ton of bars in Provo, but they do have bars. Think about that is zero bar revenue. Like none. No pregame.
2 in the morning when you have to be, the game starts at 10.
And then nothing on Saturday because people are going to leave Provo. They'll just go back to Salt Lake. They'll go wherever they're going to go. Literally, dude, when I'm done recording this, I'm getting online to see if I can find a flight out on Saturday night. And so I don't have to pay another hotel stay and stay another night. Like it's that. I mean, the
how
game is
far
going
is
to be
Provo from Salt Lake City?
It's 45 minutes. It's an hour, whatever. Nothing
airport.
crazy. Yeah, I mean, the game's going to be over at 1 o'clock.
Yeah, exactly. You can be home to watch at least Pac-12 after dark.
Yes. Yeah, and not have to pay for another hotel and not have to pay another hotel. It sucks, dude. It sucks. I'm not happy about it. But I'm gonna have fun. I'm gonna find the right space. We're gonna have fun. On the preview episode, Kevin, I'm gonna try to get Joe Young back on. He helped us with some BYU talk earlier. Try to get him back on. I don't think he really wants to talk BYU football right now because he's very, very, very frustrated. Like he was.
Okay. Well, I think they had a little bit of fool's gold, right, in the beginning of the season. What were they, 4-1?
Yeah, that Arkansas game is what got him.
Correct. It was the Arkansas winning on the road at Fayetteville. It was really impressive. It was like, maybe BYU is. I think the last few games, they've scored a combined 20 points or so in the last 3 games, and while allowing 35 plus.
So probably what we'll do is we'll get Joe Young on this Wednesday, and he can tell Oklahoma fan where to go eat for breakfast, where to go.
Maybe dinner, Friday night dinner.
Dinner Friday night, and all that fun stuff. So it'll be good. We'll try to get him on. But other than that, Kevin, I'm looking forward to the trip. Listen, I will say this about Utah, regardless of what time the game is, the stadium is gorgeous. The environment is fantastic. I love going to Utah. My wife lived in Utah. She went to school in Utah, graduated in Southern Utah, but lived in Utah when we were dating long distance. I love Utah. It's a great place to be. It just sucks that they're having a game at 10. And it's not their fault. It just sucks that the game's at 10 in the morning.
Yeah.
Can't freaking stand it. Kevin.
And look, let me say this, Steven, before we start. This is just on everything. There's still a ton of football left to be played, right? I told you this last week after you guys lost the Bedlam game. There's so many things that are going to happen between then and the end of the season, right? Nobody's out of anything, right?
Well,
nothing has been set up yet.
Real quick, right? Scenarios for the Big 12. If we just keep it at the Big 12, scenarios for the Big 12 is Oklahoma. We are Iowa State fans, right? This week. As much as I would love, especially for the Boomer Bevo podcast, to have a rematch of OU Texas, I would much rather be in the Big 12 championship game. You lose, and Oklahoma has a really good chance of getting in the Big 12 championship game.
Oh, yeah. If we have the same record, you guys have the tiebreaker.
So that's number one. So we are pulling for Iowa State. Number two, I think you want Oklahoma to be in. So I think you're pulling for an Oklahoma State loss to Houston and BYU. I don't think they're going to lose to BYU, but I think they have a chance to lose to Houston.
Yeah, if they're not focused, then yeah, they could absolutely lose to BYU or Houston. More than likely Houston, if Houston's up for it.
I do not think I don't think it would matter. I don't think you want to play K-State again.
I'd rather not. I'll say that.
No, I don't think you do. I don't think you want to. And I think that's the only. Kansas is out of it with their loss to Tech. So it would be an OU K-State game, right? If Texas loses, would it be OU K-State?
Would it be OU and Oklahoma State again?
Well, I guess
it depends on if Oklahoma State wins out.
Yeah,
And yeah, I think
I
that's what
think
would happen.
I would love a rematch against Oklahoma State. I really, really would. I mean, that would make whatever has occurred this year just feel so much better because I really think we could get them in a second time around.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
yeah, exactly. You learn from what you messed up on in
and
the.
especially in an environment like Jerry's world, which isn't Boone Pickens and doesn't have that same emotion.
Yeah.
I think I think we would have a
Here's the Big
definitive
12
advantage.
schedule. Oklahoma State plays Houston. It's at 3 o'clock on ESPN2. It's at Houston.
Yeah, why isn't
Okay.
that Oklahoma's time slot? Why isn't Oklahoma State playing Houston at 11?
Call ESPN, man. Y'all are on, yeah, at BYU at, God, that's crazy, at 10 a.m. locals. 11 o'clock in Oklahoma and Texas, but 10 o'clock in Utah. Yeah, it's pretty crazy, man. UCF at Texas Tech, Kansas State at Kansas. That should be a fun game.
Well, not if
They
they don't
got the
have a
night
quarter.
game on FS1, huh?
Not if they don't have a quarterback, though.
That's true. That Ballard kid actually played well, but yeah, I don't want him playing against K State. You certainly don't want that. Did you see the AP rankings? OU, I believe, is 14. Texas still at 7.
Okay. Okay.
Going
So is that
forward.
is Alabama still behind them then?
Alabama's still 8.
See, that's the thing. I think that
And
buffets my
Oregon.
argument.
Here's the thing. Oregon. It's interesting, right? If we talk about this, Oregon is still ahead of Texas at number 6, right? Now you could argue that Texas actually has a better resume, even though Oregon passes the eye test a little bit better.
Hmm.
Texas has a better resume than Oregon does.
I like Oregon's quarterback better than yours,
Yeah, I mean, Bo Nix has been unreal this
which
season.
which I'm not sure I would have said that at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Um,
yeah, because Bo Nix at Auburn
yeah,
was just an absolute roller coaster.
yeah, but boy, he's
Yeah, he's been great, and he's not turning it over at all.
okay. Yeah, God, the permutation. You know what? I'm gonna look. You look at that schedule. I'll look at the schedule too for Wednesday, and let's see what needs to take place in order for who to play who. But anyway, long story short, Oklahoma's rooting for Iowa State. Obviously, we always root against Texas, but there's a little extra to it. But you guys, if you pull that win out, you're still setting up a big game against Tech. I mean,
The Tech game is going to be massive, man. It's going to be a night game too. It's going to be, and it's a Friday after Thanksgiving, right? Black Friday. You guys get the 11 o'clock game against
TCU.
TCU
Yep.
in Norman,
Yep.
and Texas at home against Texas Tech in our last ever Big 12 regular season games.
I'm driving down to San Antonio for Thanksgiving, and I want to come back on Friday. And so I'm debating whether I stay at my brother's and watch the game or just drive home and listen to it on the radio. So I
It's
don't
a
know what I'm going to
dilemma.
do. I don't know what I'm going to do.
If you leave, what time are you going to leave to come back?
Early, like
Okay, good,
8-ish.
because you don't want to be driving through Austin anytime during any close to game day. I mean, it's a night game, so it won't be too bad. But
I take the loop
driving I
around.
35. Oh, do you?
Take
You
the
have a
loop
toll?
around.
Okay, smart.
You get on 410. 410 takes you to I-10. You take I-10 over to that loop, and away you go. That's what you
Well,
do.
good. Yeah, for sure.
I don't want to. You're right. I don't want to mess with that. That's a good. Hey, good thinking though. That's where your brain needs to be. Kevin, Baker won. Bijan lost. Bijan lost to Kyler Murray in his first game back
Welcome back.
for Arizona's second win of the season. I don't know that they're going to turn it around, but it's fun to have Kyler back. So Cowboys won big. Cowboys looked really good, but of course
The
the
Giants are
Giants were
horrible.
really bad.
And yeah, Daniel Jones, and not that he was great at all this season, but he tore his ACL last week, so he's out for the
Was
season.
their quarterback's name really Danny DeVito?
No, Tommy DeVito.
Oh,
Tommy DeVito. But Joe Pesci's character on Goodfellas.
that was his name.
That's Tommy DeVito.
Listen, Joe Pesci in Goodfellas. That's one of the best character portrayals of all time in any movie. That guy,
Yeah,
he was psychotic in that movie,
he
man.
was. And it's funny because in the movie Casino, he basically is the same guy.
Same guy.
And yeah, he's great at it, man.
Now
Love that movie and
Is
love Joe
Goodfellas the one
Pesci.
where Goodfellas is the one where he just beats the crap out of him in the bar, right? And that's good.
Yeah, they all stomp him. Yeah, it's him first. and then De Niro and them. Yeah, they
Yeah.
stomp the guy out, end up killing him. Yeah. Great
Which
scene.
Which is the one where they have to go bury the guy and then they go back and eat at his mom's house? Is that
Same
Goodfellas?
movie, Goodfellas.
Yes, okay.
Uh-huh.
Ray Liotta was in that movie. Rest in peace.
Rest in peace, yeah.
Whatever. Yeah, Pesci's what a weird dude. What a weird dude. Great actor. Great freaking actor.
Yeah.
Really good. And I'll tell you what's coming up? It's Christmas time. He might be in his best film coming up, Home Alone. He's so good in Home Alone. Dude.
He was great in that, especially because it's him. And it's around that same time, too.
Yeah, he was.
You see him from being in Goodfellas, killing guys to trying to rob a kid's house. This is perfect.
Yeah, it was great. All right, dude. We went a little long. That's okay. It's a Boomer Bevo podcast. There's a lot to talk about. It's college football. We only got 2 weeks left of the regular season, so we're gonna miss it when it's gone. We're gonna miss it when it's gone. Take your time and enjoy it. Enjoy it at an 11 a.m. kickoff here in Oklahoma, because I will be experiencing it at 10 a.m. I don't even know if the body has emotions to experience a game at 10 a.m., but we'll find out. That's okay. Kevin, have a great night. Boomer!
Hug 'em.